Does reputation equal real value? There is something almost alchemical about the process by which human worth gets translated into social currency. Skills, character, contributions, all these somehow condense into a single, seemingly quantifiable substance called reputation. And once formed, this reputation begins to function as if it were the reality it represents, sometimes even replacing the reality entirely. But observe what actually happens when reputation and reality diverge. A doctor becomes famous for a controversial theory that later proves incorrect, yet continues to be invited to conferences based on name recognition rather than current expertise. Meanwhile, a researcher doing groundbreaking work in obscurity struggles to get attention for discoveries that could transform the field. The reputation trails behind reality like a shadow cast by yesterday's sun. This reveals something fascinating about how collective consciousness processes value and worth. Watch how reputation creates its own momentum, independent of the qualities it originally reflected. A company known for innovation may coast on that reputation long after innovation has ceased. A person celebrated for wisdom may continue to be consulted, even when their insights have become stale. The reputation develops a life of its own, sometimes contradicting the very reality it was meant to represent. But perhaps more interesting is what happens to individuals when they become aware of this disconnect between their reputation and their actual capacity. Someone may be known as an expert in their field while privately knowing that their understanding has significant gaps. The external recognition creates pressure to maintain an image of competence they don't fully feel. They must perform expertise rather than simply being present to what they actually know and don't know. This creates a peculiar form of suffering, the gap between public persona and private reality. The person with a sterling reputation may feel like an imposter, constantly worried that others will discover they are not as knowledgeable, skilled, or worthy as their reputation suggests. Conversely, someone whose true capabilities far exceed their reputation may feel frustrated by not being seen accurately. Their actual contributions go unrecognized while less substantial work receives acclaim. They understand the arbitrary nature of reputation while still feeling its effects. But this observation leads to a deeper question. What is real value, independent of social recognition? Consider a nurse who works night shifts in a hospital, providing skilled care and genuine compassion to patients who may never remember her name. Her reputation is minimal. She receives no publicity, no awards, no social media following. Yet her presence in those dark hours of human vulnerability creates immeasurable value. Lives are preserved, suffering is reduced, healing is facilitated. Is her work less valuable because it's not recognized? Is the celebrated surgeon necessarily more valuable because everyone knows their name? This suggests that real value and reputation exist in different realms entirely. One is measured by actual impact, skill, contribution, presence. The other is measured by social perception, media coverage, network effects, timing, and often luck. There are individuals throughout history who died in obscurity yet whose contributions changed the world. Scientists whose discoveries were ignored in their lifetime, but later recognized as revolutionary. Artists whose work was dismissed when created, but later celebrated as masterpieces. Their value was constant, only their recognition was delayed. Equally, there are people who achieved great fame during their lifetime, yet whose work proved to have little lasting value. The reputation was substantial, but the underlying reality was thin. This disconnect reveals something important about how we evaluate ourselves and others. When we mistake reputation for reality, we begin to live for appearance rather than substance. We shape our efforts toward what will be noticed, rather than what will be valued. We measure our worth by others' perceptions rather than by our actual contributions. The person enslaved by reputation becomes like an actor who has forgotten they are playing a role. They begin to believe the character is real. To confuse the performance with their essential being, they must constantly maintain the image, protect the brand, manage the perception. But what happens when someone recognizes the arbitrary nature of reputation while continuing to engage meaningfully with their work? They may achieve recognition, Or they may not, but their satisfaction remains stable because it comes from engagement itself rather than from others' evaluation of that engagement. They understand that their value does not increase when reputation grows or decrease when reputation fades. This is not indifference to others' opinions or rejection of all external feedback. This is clarity about the difference between useful feedback and the psychological trap of reputation management. The person with this clarity can receive praise without becoming inflated, criticism without becoming deflated. They can appreciate recognition when it comes while remaining independent of the need for it. They understand that their essential worth exists prior to and independent of social evaluation. Perhaps most significantly, they can focus their energy on actual contribution rather than on managing perception. Without the constant distraction of reputation concerns, there can be deeper engagement with work, more authentic relationships, more creative risk-taking. There is something liberating about recognizing that reputation is not reality. It frees us to pursue what we find genuinely valuable, rather than what we think others will value. It allows us to contribute according to our actual understanding, rather than according to the image we think we should maintain. This understanding transforms the relationship to both praise and criticism. Positive feedback becomes information about impact, rather than confirmation of worth. Negative feedback becomes data about effectiveness rather than attack on identity. Can you distinguish between your reputation and your reality? Can you work for the intrinsic value of the work rather than for the recognition it might bring? Can you find satisfaction in contribution itself rather than in others' acknowledgement of your contribution? What is this value that needs no reputation to be real? This worth that exists independent of all social recognition? This contribution that serves regardless of whether anyone notices the service.